Welcome to Yellow Brick Road. I am Jordan, and today I have a fan request video with the monkey, the turd flinging one. But before I get to that, please consider donating to Devon's Journey to Recovery. The GoFundMe link is down there in the description box. Click that link, read the story, check out the other donations, and make a donation yourself. None of the money goes to us. It's to help someone else out with charity, one of our subscribers and his wife. And you can help out through that GoFundMe for Devon's Journey to Recovery. The link is in the description box. All right. So I think we've done maybe a couple videos on this guy. They're probably pretty sloppy, to be real with you. But, I like just talking shit. I don't care to give you a structured documentary style thing. Only once in a while I'll even consider doing that, but I usually just like to listen and go off the cuff, basically. Right? No plan, no scheme, no nothing. Just watch, react, say what I think at the time. So I guess we're going to do another sloppy version off the top of the head. That's right. This is from Turd Flinging Monkey. The name of the video is Political Trichotomy. Can't we all just get along? Sounds interesting. Now, I've already saw most of this video, and what I want to do is just a little precursor, a little something before we watch this. You have to remember, in my opinion, these are malignant versions of these type of words. Like when he brings up equality and freedom and stability, these are not like what I think most people are thinking of. These are like a, ass backwards version of them, which helps him, build his thoughts and his opinions on it, right? It's structured, but the way he's defining them, maybe even the way he defines people, is probably very malignant and an off version of what I see. So keep that in mind. Also, I guess you call it a presupposition of we are our brains. Once you start there, I've said this about this guy before, I think. Once you start with we are nothing but our brains and our body, that's it. Once you have that presupposition, without proving it, of course, no one's proved, that that's the actual case, but if you start with that, you can create millions upon millions of theories and ideas, and you can make charts about human behavior and on and so forth, because you don't need to actually truly investigate individuals one at a time. What you can do is just look back in history, draw up statistics, as in these people fall in this group, in this group, in this group, and now they will behave that way, because that's what history has told us. As opposed to, what's the truth? What do you know and what don't you know? Are you skipping past the things you don't know in order to have maybe have a YouTube channel or a successful YouTube channel, or to have a persona, or to be looked at in a certain way? I have the answer. Let's find out if he has any answers for us. All right, here we go. Here's the monkey.
Hello everyone, this is Turd Flinging Monkey, and today we're going to talk about the political trichotomy yet again. And I'm going to answer a question that I've been asked by a couple people. Basically, the question is, why can't we cooperate? In the immortal words of Rodney King, why can't we all just get along?
Boy, I hope he brings up psychology in this one.
So you have, just as a refresher, you have the communist left, you have the individualist right, and you have the absolutist right. And these three groups have three different core values. The core value of the communist left is equality. The core value of the individualist right is freedom. And the core value of the absolutist right is stability. Now, why can't we all get along? Why can't we find some happy medium? And it's very simple. It's because all these values are mutually exclusive. They can only be advanced at the expense of the other two.
Now, someone watching this would look at the words equality, freedom, and stability. Like, those belong together, right? Don't they belong together as like a solid unit? Like teammates. He's using the malignant versions of these words and he's associating it to probably what he considers as like negative groups, maybe. Except for the freedom one, the libertarian, I guess. I think he considers those the good guys, or where he would fall in line with, and the other groups are the bad versions, right? That's the way it seems to me. But these three things, these are not. It doesn't mean actual equality, actual freedom, actual stability, which actually belong together. What he means is the malignant version of those things. I think if he doesn't, if that's not where he's trying to go, like in his mind, that's not where he's trying to go, then it's like, sorry, dude, that's the way you're defining them to me. All right? How the fuck is equality, you know, mutually exclusive from freedom or stability? Right? If you're not free, then you're probably not content. Then how the fuck are you stable? Once again, using the malignant versions of them. Maybe even like a materialist, to where humans aren't actually humans. They're just functions of the universe. They're robots. They're, organic robots, essentially. All right, let's continue. This might be a long video. I apologize now.
I can demonstrate this. The relationship between freedom and equality is pretty well understood. If you want people to be more equal, you have to take, because life isn't fair, people have different levels of talent, ability to work, whatever, education, whatever you want. People achieve different things. In order to make them equal, you're going to have to treat them differently. Freedom comes...
See, that's not what I see when I hear equality, right? Equality is not a math equation of 1 equals 1, right? Right? LeBron's basketball skill does not equal Jordan's basketball skill. Well, I should have said that the other way. I'm not as good as LeBron at basketball, but we're still equal, regardless. Still equal. It's a different sense of equality. I think that's what most people mean by equality. Like, oh, we should be treated fairly. Everyone. In fact, that ties right into freedom, does it not? Right? In America, everyone has these individual rights. We all have it equally. So he has to be talking about the malignant versions of these things. Right? If we don't have that freedom, then things become unstable, don't they? People are ready to grab guns and shoot up the fucking government. Maybe I'm wrong, man. Maybe I'm wrong. I doubt it, but let him continue here.
At the expense of equality, and equality comes at the expense of freedom. Pretty well understood, like I said. But what about stability? So in the most stable form of society, you have very rigid class structures, very rigid definition of division of labor. So think of it like an ant colony. Now, the thing about an ant colony, there is a queen, just like there is like in a beehive. But the queen ant isn't like issuing orders, isn't like the government of the ants. The queen is more akin to like just the brood mother. She's having all the babies, but she's not like in charge. She's protected because her ability to have all the babies is very valuable to the colony. But the queen ant or the queen bee isn't like a dictator that issues edicts to the other ants or whatever. The ants are basically operating solely on instinct. And depending on what kind of ant they are, whether they're a worker ant, a warrior, a drone, or a queen, they're going to fulfill their role. And they're going to fulfill it to the utmost of their ability until they're dead. They're never going to complain. The workers aren't going to say, man, I wish I was a queen, or, I wish I was a warrior. They're just going to be very content in their little world, and they're going to do what they're supposed to do to the utmost of their ability until they're dead. That is the most stable society conceivable. The problem with that...
Then it's not a society then, right? They would essentially just be robots. There's no them there to experience the society. It's just... They're just robots inputting and outputting, essentially. Right? That's what I would think. That's not an actual society. But, I think he's working with the malignant versions of these things. Because real stability would include instability, right? They need to be together. Pleasure needs to have pain alongside with it. Or at the very least, pleasure and lack thereof. They need to be paired. If you're dealing with someone with an ego, right? They need that separation in order to truly experience both of them. The process of creating something or the process of figure something out it's an unstable or unstable scenario, right? Like, what is this thing? It's pushing papers around, it's finding the answer, it's really looking for it, and the stability is when you find the answer. You need both. So, but I guess he's talking about, I don't know, a malignant version that can be represented in society, I guess. Boy, I hope he explained what humans are. I hope he explained that in some video prior to. Because last thing I've heard of him was, say, hey, what about emotions, man? It's your limbic system. Oh, we're robots then. Okay, gotcha. Why aren't we going with the anthill thing? Why not just go with that? All right, if someone becomes a plumber, it's because they're meant to be a plumber. Biologically meant to be a plumber. So why aren't we just going with that? That would make freedom actual freedom would be the malignancy if we're just biological robots, correct? Let's continue.
That comes at the expense of equality and freedom. So if you want to have a more equal society where the ants aren't bound by their roles, you have workers who want to be like the queen or whatever. Put aside the fact that makes no sense, but I'm just using this as a metaphor. If the ants decided if they gained sapience and they wanted a more equal society, it would destabilize the colony. If there were ants that wanted to be more free, like there was actually an animated movie called Ants, it was spelled with a Z, and it was a story about a worker ant who didn't like being a worker ant. He wanted to do other things. He didn't want to be a worker ant anymore. He didn't find it personally fulfilling. And that sort of individualism also comes at the expense of the viability of the colony. So the absolutist right, all they care about is the viability, sustainability of the colony, the tribe, the whatever, which is why their big pejorative is degeneracy. Anything which increases degeneracy, it increases instability, and it could potentially be fatal to the colony, tribe, whatever. But the problem is there are going to be people who don't like being workers, who don't like being put in this box, in this stable society. They're going to want to do something else. And then you're going to crush them and force them to conform because all that matters is the colony.
Now, what's the thing that's wanting or liking or not liking? What is that thing? Hopefully he's explained this in prior videos. The actual, definition, full definition. What is the thing that is wanting things or liking things or not liking things? Because if it's genetically based, then it's not actual wanting or liking or disliking. It's just an output from some other input, like a robot. Let's continue.
Again, this is like an ant example, but I hope you understand that all of these values, whether it's stability, whether it's freedom, or whether it's equality, these are all mutually exclusive.
These malignant versions are mutually exclusive, yes. How I would define those words, they have to be paired together. Otherwise, you're probably not getting the real version of it, right? You can't truly be equal if there's no freedom, right? And vice versa. You can't You can't truly be free if there's no equality, right? I mean, someone's getting more freedom than the next person, even just on a blatant, on the surface social level, right? If these people are allowed to have this type of food, and you're not allowed to have any type of food, that's not really equality. Yeah, essentially, I would say. That wouldn't even be freedom, would it? Whatever. I probably fucked that up. Anyways, let's continue.
One cannot advance except at the expense of the others. And so you will always have these three groups. They will never cooperate. They will never just live and let live. There is no happy medium. Even if you split the baby directly down the middle and you had a society that was 33% equality, 33% freedom, 33% stability, no one would be happy. Nobody. Because everybody has different values in different proportions, and they're going to demand that this society become either more free, more equal, or more stable. No one's going to be happy with a 33-33-33 split. So in my opinion, the best scenario to have a stable human civilization, when you have people who belong...
Okay, so he's talking about humans, like he believes this is what's going on in society. That's kind of dark. It's a weird outlook on life. And if that's what he's talking, I thought he was talking about, like, okay, the worst versions of these three things, right? Or like almost like an anti-equality, anti-freedom, anti-stability. Like, if these three groups were in a society, it'd blow up, or whatever the fuck he says. Right? But apparently he's talking about actual society. If I had to guess, based on how he's defining these groups, they're probably far away on the fringes. And most people probably have a mixture of all these things. It's like, I want to be able to just buy things, free market stuff. But, I'll pay taxes for the cops, the military, and the roads. And hey, you want to dabble into healthcare? Okay. I think that makes society more stable. But I'll give him a chance. I don't know if he means this is how society's working, but maybe it's the creepers up in government that think like this. Maybe. Thus, it would explain the malignancy. And people are just conditioned following those guys' orders around. But, let's continue.
Belong to these three groups with these values is to have as many small groups as possible essentially self-segregate by their values. We actually have this in the United States. It was called Federalism, where the states were supposed to be where the power was, and the federal government had a very small list of enumerated powers, and that was it. In fact, during the original Articles of Confederation, the federal government was even weaker. They found that happy medium, so the federal government was as strong as it needed to be to fulfill its role, but everything was largely left to the states. But that ended after the Civil War. So the problem with strong states is eventually, when you have a federal government electing someone who's going to impose their values on the others, in the case of the Civil War, it was when Abraham Lincoln, the first Republican president, whose party was founded on the abolition of slavery, was elected the president. The South seceded and caused the Civil War. So what we have is I
don't know if that's true at all. I want to check Ryan Dawson for that one. Not sure that was true at all, but let's continue.
Kind of a paradox. How do you create a society where people can live according to their values within small communities or like states or something like that isn't going to end in civil war? And the answer is, I don't know if that's even possible.
Yes, it is. But that would rely on your definition of what people are, right? Right now he's defining societies, and I'm like, all the societies are made up of people. Okay, let's define the person. What is that thing? What is it? If it's simply, you know, biological robots, then why are we even talking about this? Like, it's gonna go the way it goes. Obviously, there'd be no freedom. Obviously, there'd be no equality and stability. There is no, like, that idea doesn't exist because you need to pair it with instability, right? You need to pair stability with instability. You need to pair order with chaos. They have to be paired together. But if they're just robots, then if one goes, the other's gone too. There's no stability without instability. There's no order without chaos. So stability just wiped off the thing. It just is what it is. But let's continue.
In the end, you would still have resentment and envy just like you have now. Except it would be targeted at the states, which the jobs, the money would all flow to. So you have...
What are resentment? What is envy? What is that?
communism, you have absolutism, you have individualism. Because the individualists are the ones who embrace capitalism and the free market, all the jobs and all the money are going to flow to them, especially from the communist state. So imagine you had 50 states, they were all like individual laboratories with a varying degree of absolutism, communism, and individualism. So they had a little bit of equality, a little bit of freedom, a little bit of stability. Everyone found their niche, and you had 50 different laboratories running 50 different experiments. The ones that were more free, the ones that were more individualistic, is where all the jobs and all the money would go. And because all the jobs and all the money would go to those states, the states that had the communist values would complain about how the states that had the individualist values stole their wealth from them. And you see this right now in the real world, where you have third world countries run by communist parties complaining that America stole their wealth. Again, it doesn't matter if it makes no sense.
I love, you can tell there's a bias here, right? Sounds like he's on a team. That's what that sounds like. But it's funny how these guys, I hear a bunch of guys say this. They're like, oh, you're crying about stolen resources, like, that doesn't even make sense, and blah, blah, blah. Where'd you get that from? And then, if I sat this dude down in front of Noam Chomsky, he'd be like, well, in 1945, and blah, 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 about the Sandinistas, and blah, 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 blah. He'd be like, what are you going to do to that? Like, what? It's like, you could say a communistic or socialism or whatever sucks. You can say the system sucks, but you can't just ignore that certain things have happened, right? It's like the Dulles brothers. What Dulles brothers? They're not real. Those aren't real people. They didn't really go into South America. They didn't do that. Back in the 40s. We didn't destabilize Iran. We didn't do that. No. Gaddafi? Nothing. Who's that? So it's like, I don't know. I hope he has videos upon videos about, okay, guys, I'm going to prove that communism and socialism suck. Here's how. Now, I'm not going to use historical references because they're a little bit, if I was calling this a scientific, exploration into how this thing sucks, I can't use history because here's events, here's dates, here's names, and here's the coups, here's the interventions through long periods of time. So here's actual colonization. This actually happened. It's not a SJW talking point. When I'm saying it, at least. Okay, because you want to be, as honest as possible, right? Because the point of these guys making their YouTube channels is to help other people out, right? When they're talking about these, right? He's not up here talking about, sports games and shit like that. He's talking about society and life, is he not? I think he has a lot of MGTOW stuff, right? So obviously the point of him making these videos is to inform other people, to help them out, to try to make them better, Like, hey, I want a society, a better society. So I'm going to help as many people as I can by putting information out for them. So clearly he can't be on a team. He's not team playing. He doesn't have some preconceived notion. He doesn't have some sort of ideology he's protecting. He's trying to be as blatantly honest as possible because he's trying to help his audience out. Let's continue.
That's just the way it is. And if they have the technology, if they have the military might to wage war against the United States, they would.
I agree with that. And they'll have plenty of excuses. They won't have to go to their people and say, look, if they have resources, we need to take it. We need to take their resources. That's what we need to do. They don't even have to do that. They'll be like, the America has come here 50 years ago and overthrown our nation, our democratically elected leaders. They stole our wealth. And they'll have a point. And so so any creepers that get in those governments, and let's say they gain some sort of military might, they'll be able to get their citizens on board no time. Which is why I always go to the people first. I don't mistake, creepers with the actual people that are just living day-to-day lives, right? I don't mistake the Israeli government with Israelis themselves. I'm sure there's dum-dums there, 100% sure of it. But, I happen to think there's people that mean well all over the fucking world. They just get misinformed, or their leaders tell us, look at this tragedy here. Meanwhile, they're just thinking about resources to grab up or whatever. I mean, in your lifetime, dude, right? Like, we're in Syria right now, man. We were in northern Syria protecting fucking resources and shit like that. So it's like, in your lifetime, it literally happening right in front of you. But it's a lie. Let's continue.
And that would be a problem between the individualist states and the communist states. But what about the absolutist states? So I want you to picture what an absolutist state would look like. You'd have a very strict hierarchy, very defined class roles, probably a state religion. Think like, medieval Europe. That's what the absolutist states would be.
Once again, these are all malignant versions of stability, equality, freedom. They're the malignant versions of them, defined by him.
And their primary fear is degeneracy. So if they belong to a country, and this country has different states that have different values, they're going to see every state that doesn't share their values as a threat to the stability of their state. And you see this even, again, in Europe. You had all these European countries that were all white. They shared the skin color and the history, and yet they had different cultures, they had different religions, they had different languages, and all they did was kill each other. The French, the British, the Germans, everybody. All they did was wage endless war against each other, even though they were effectively cousins. I mean, now you have, people talking about a white ethno-state or European culture, as if there ever was a European culture. You had different ethnicities with completely different cultures, and they hated each other. So the absolutist...
Once again, just like the point I was making before in regards to... I make sure I make a separation between the people that are trying to steer the message and the people who are conditioned by the message, right? I always make a distinction. So when he says, these people hated these people, did they? Did they really hate each other? Or was it two kings on opposing sides, see an opportunity like, I could take more land, or they have something I want, or I personally don't like this king, or whatever it is. And they condition the people lower on the social ladder to fight each other, or they threaten them into fighting each other. A whole bunch. I bet if you just took normal people aside from any part in time, any of these people, and say, hey, like Bob, meet John. Say, oh yeah, wow, we're actually kind of similar. I have to work hard every day on my farm. He has to work hard every day on his farm. It's like, fuck, what were we fighting about? There's actually a documentary I saw on HBO. I forgot the name of it, but it's the one that's directed by Peter Jackson, right? The Lord of the Rings guy. Yeah, and it's documentary archival footage of World War One from the British perspective, and it talks about how these guys, they capture some of the German soldiers after a big fight, and they're like, "Fuck, we're so similar." It's like, "Fuck, I joined when I was 16. This guy joined when he was 16. Why the fuck are we here?" It's like, what? Like in a different life, I can see myself being friends with this person. They're fucking smiling, taking pictures together. They're just happy to not be shooting at each other anymore. But, history. I keep telling people this. You know, one, it's this side versus this side in a bloody war. Bloody, violent, physical, violent war. It's like the winner is always war. That's always the winner. Every time. We've allowed it to be undefeated, actually. Right? When America fought the British Empire or whatever, America didn't win that war. War won that war. Because now we know whenever these dickheads want to settle a conflict, it's guns first. It's guns, or it's threatening with guns, or it's preparing with guns, or something like that. Rather than, debate. Do that kind of war. Right? War of words. So that for both populations to hear, and people can figure out, who sounds the most correct here? Rather than whoever's stronger wins. It's usually nerds, too. It's usually nerds. They're the ones getting, the runts to fight each other in wars. Meanwhile, you would think they would be the ones that would want to talk it out because that's their strength, right? But it might be a psychological thing of where they hate, the jock archetype. So you're like, oh, you're made for just killing the other team. That's all. We do the thinking around here. All right, I'll continue. Here we go.
States would create like little fiefdoms and they would constantly kill each other. So war is inevitable from the absolutist standpoint, and war is inevitable from the communist standpoint because all the wealth and resources and jobs would flow from the communist state to the individualist state, and the communists would blame them for stealing their wealth and their jobs.
Unless you're China. Hey, maybe you should sit down with Richard Wolff. I mean, this guy has a lot of followers, right? So maybe he can get Richard Wolff to talk to him. And they can debate it out, like what actually is this communism thing, or this Marxism thing, or socialism thing, and then they could actually debate it out. Like here's how these things have worked, and here's how they work. Just numbers on paper. But, that would be risky. That's a risky thing to do. These guys, these YouTubers, it's a risky thing to talk to people with opposing points of view. Like, it looks bad if I change my mind, or if I look wrong. It's like, fuck. I'm never going to live in that lane. Ever. Never, ever. If someone has proven me wrong, I'd be like, oh, fuck. Do you want to come on my show? We can talk about this. And you can explain. We can both explain how I got this wrong and why I'm wrong. And what are my intentions when I do get something wrong. Rather than, I need to hold this character up for my fans. They pay my bills. All right, let's continue.
Even though it's simply economics working its crazy magic. So eventually you have to let the war happen. It's going to happen. There's no way to stop it from happening. Ideally, you would have a system where these small.
So you create these malignant versions of things, like I would say you define them. That's what I mean by creating, which might apply to some, I would think, fringe, more of the fringe elements of, communism or whatever, monarchy, libertarianism, whatever. I think that's more of a fringe version, but you're at the end of the day when you put that type of definition on it, like the end goal, the end thing is going to be war, and it's like, and you look outside and you see like, or you look on YouTube, you see 20 Antifa guys versus 20 Proud Boys. It's like, yep, the war's happening, all right. See like 30 on 30. It's like, what? It's just the way it seems. All right, let's continue.
Smaller scale wars can happen so that it doesn't put the entire nation or world at jeopardy. Let things kind of play out on a smaller scale. I haven't worked out the logistics of how that would work, but it's really inevitable. Ideally, though, you let people live according to their values, but because these values and these things don't lead to equal outcomes, people are going to still be bitter and resentful, and they're going to turn to violence, and they're going to demand stuff. And at the end of the day, there's no way around it. The communists are always going to demand free stuff, and they're going to threaten violence, and they're going to have to be put down. The absolutists are always
They have to be put down. Does he define where these things come from? Like something like communism? Or, whatever groups apply to these three things? Does he say how it happens? Does he bring up, like, psychology? Like how someone might think of, like, fall into these groups, ideologically? Does he psychoanalyze himself? Like, why do you think the things you think? Because they're right. Because they're correct, that's why. It's like, what? Like, have you self-analyzed yourself? Like, self-psychoanalysis. Let's call it that. It's like, fuck. And it seems like he's borrowed some things from Peterson. Maybe he left out the Carl Jung aspects that Peterson brings up.
always going to demand conformity to their religion and their culture. And if you don't agree with them and you don't conform, they're probably going to genocide you anyway. Just look at history. But let's say,
once again, man, if I sit Noam Chomsky in front of you, maybe even a historian, somebody that, because usually these things never looks like what it looks like just on the surface. Even the biggest events in the world, most of the time they never just like, oh, this thing happened and that's it. There's usually like a backstory. There's something that led up to it. Yeah, especially in more recent times because we have more documentation on it. So I don't know. Even things like World War I, World War II, the lead up to these things. There's like questions about all of this. Maybe that's just conspiracy, but haven't heard it thrown away. Haven't heard anyone say, "Oh, that's bullshit. I debunked this. It's debunked." But let's continue.
you're not down with that, you're going to have to resist them. It's going to lead to war. In fact, if your goal was to prevent war, then you want to spread individualism and capitalism, because individual capitalism creates trading partners and not adversaries. However, if your advantage
Sounds like I don't know. I don't know what the ideology would be. It sounds like he could sit in office. Like the typical politicians we've had throughout our history. Definitely our like recent history. Maybe like before Trump. Like that typical politician sounds like he would fit in perfectly. instead of diplomacy to end war, it's diplomacy to get free trade to have less war. Because war is inevitable, according to him, right? Because of these archetypes, which I think is how he's defining them, archetypes. I just have questions about all of this. Very weird.
Individualism and capitalism, you're degenerating society and you're creating inequality. And so the people who have the values of equality and stability will hate you. They will swear vengeance against you and they will try to do anything to destroy what you're trying to build. And they're not wrong. There's no evil people. I mean, you could look at the communists as like probably the worst of the worst because so many people die whenever their shit's attempted. But even they aren't evil. They're just really stupid. Because their system doesn't work, but according to their morality, it's the right thing to do. And they are legitimately trying to make the world a better place according to their values and their morals. Now, the fact that it doesn't work and it leads to millions of people dying, yeah, that's unfortunate, but that would happen under any system. Even in an individualist capitalist system, people die, depending on who's dying. No matter what system you create, someone's going to not benefit from it where they would benefit from a different system. And so people are always going to advocate for the system that they personally benefit from. So if you are a loser, it makes all the sense in the world for you to advocate communism.
See, it's like in 5th grade, if you're a loser, you like communism. It's like, what? Once again, I'd advocate for this guy to literally play Noam Chomsky talking about interventions in all these other countries. Just play it for your audience and then debunk all of it to show them that it's just communism that destroys, Venezuela or Honduras or Vietnam or any of these places. It's communism that's destroying them, not our shady interventions. I would love for him to do that. And it would scare me if he didn't even, at least debunk those things, right? That's kind of scary because then you're really just hiding evidence from your audience who may not know any better, right? Once again, you got to consider psychology. That's what I try. You got to be able to recognize conditioning to where, okay, they like your style, thus they'll believe whatever words you tell them, right? Or they like that you curse and you talk shit and you talk normal. They may like that about you, and then they hear your ideology, like, oh fuck, I'll follow that too. At least play something like that, something counter to just socialism or communism is bad. Not that I'm defending them. I think they're just, neutral systems that don't, it's about people doing things, not as much the system they're using. It's about the intentions going on here. Real intentions. Probably not the thing he's talking about. So yeah, just do a video going over Chomsky and then debunk all of it for your audience so that they're more informed, or at the very least just play it. Maybe they'll hear different types of information, walk away with something else. People do that for me all the time. People send me shit and I get to look at it. Granted, it doesn't change my mind because my mind was already open to the possibility, or my mind is up to the understanding of, how do I say this? My mind is already set on placing things I don't know into one giant box so that I don't place I don't place the wrong idea on something that I have no clue about, The things I know, I keep it over here. The things I don't know, I leave it open so people can send me information. It doesn't change my mind because my mind wasn't set in the first place, really. But it may change how I talk about things. I can hear my OCD, how my mind's working. All right, let's finish this out. I don't think there's much left.
Because you lost the game of capitalism, you lost the competition, and you want to flip the table, you want to change the rules. It makes all the sense in the world. You're not necessarily evil either. You're living according to different values. There's no way around this. This is the naive belief that we can just get along or we can cooperate.
I'm just saying, like, Richard Wolff is I would say, very successful guy. I'm sure he makes a decent living doing lectures and speeches and all that stuff. People say, Bernie, how'd you make your millions? Capitalism. But, yeah, these guys seem to find some platform that's large enough to talk to, thousands, millions of people. I don't know what Chomsky's, economic ideology is, but he's one of the most famous people on the planet, at least in the intellectual circles. So you can't just say, oh, you guys are losers, so that's it. I don't know. These guys are becoming college professors, like, oh, you loser. So yeah, don't they have like a successful life, essentially? They're just hating on Bill Gates.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and in an individual society, we would cooperate. But we have people with different values, and they will not cooperate because the advancement of freedom comes at the expense of the values that they stand for. There's no, can't we cooperate? Can't we work it out? No, there really isn't, because these are mutually exclusive values. So, sorry to be all black pill on you, but yeah, war is inevitable. Sorry. Anyway, this is Turd Flinging Monkey. Thank you for watching.
Alright, Turd Flinging Monkey. War is inevitable, but does it have to be a guns blazing, missiles and bombs war? Can a debate be a war? Right? That's essentially what physical war is, right? It's opposing ideologies. They're just letting the winner be dictated by who has, the most men standing at the end, or who can cause the most damage to the other team physically. But they're essentially battling over ideology. And ideology is the only way to get your actual soldiers to fight. Or survival. Survival could be a part of it too. But essentially, it's opposing ideologies that the wars are about anyway, so why not debate them out? But I'm asking too much. Some people are going to say, that can't happen because of human nature. And they're going to fight as hard as they can to hold up that idea of human nature. So that they're going to fight to keep wars going, physical wars going, so that they can say, see, you can't, there is no alternative to it. It's like, but you're helping it up. This is like a self-fulfilling prophecy, man. Alright, that's it for me. I hope this guy isn't a psychopath. I hear some things there where it's like, man, I hope you have like no like feelings going on, like no metaphysical, internal feelings. There's just blank slate of the world sucks and this and that and this and this is how the world looks. Yeah, it seems like a malignant version of life. You're just saying you just need pleasure and more hedonism. Alright, that's it for me. Please subscribe if you feel like. Comment, agree, disagree, send me information. This is a fan request, so why don't you request a video? You can do that in the comment section. Also, donate. Devon's Journey to Recovery GoFundMe link is down there in the description box. And with all that said, give this video a thumbs down.
Say you wanna get in.